I need to get my program sorted. I need to get my course. I need to have a website. I need to make sure I have all my social media profiles up. And people procrastinate on all this passive stack, these passive assets. And what you're basically saying is, why don't you just take your experience and expertise, what you know, and put it into 5 sessions, basically, and say to someone, why don't we just work together and see how we go? And I love it because it's low risk for both people, and it's speed to experience.
Hey there, expert. Rana Saini here. See, the wealthiest business coaches and consultants see business success as the system. This podcast, The Expert Advantage, contains real-world, in-the-trenches business advice that our clients use to gain a strategic advantage in growing their $1 million expert business. It's my hope that you use these short lessons and insights to gain your strategic advantage in growing your expert business, and maybe one day soon partner with us at The Expert Project to take your expert coaching and consulting business to $1 million and beyond. I hope you share and enjoy.
G'day everyone, welcome to The Expert Advantage. Today's guest is Richmond Dinh. Richmond, mate, it's awesome to have you here to talk about the game of business, the internal and the external game, and what you're doing and how you're doing it to get the results you're getting, not only for yourself, which are phenomenal, we're going to dive into that, but also for your clients and those people who are working with you. Richmond, great to have you on today, buddy.
Oh man, Rana, it's a pleasure being on your podcast. You know, you made it when you got into your podcast. That's sincerely, like, legit. It's really an honor to be here,
mate. And I've known you for a long time, and we've done some work together in various different ways. And I've seen you grow from, from early days when you just had a little bit of you had a vision, you had a lot of belief, but you weren't, as if you were to weigh yourself up about who you've become now to who you were, you've grown so much, man. It's inspirational for myself, for people who know you. And, this will sound a bit weird, but it's interesting because my name's Rana, your name's Richmond Dinh, and we come from like these groups where, where you're an Asian guy and I'm an Indian guy, and I've had people in my past who said to me, oh, Rana's a weird name. And people look at you and go, Richmond's a weird name. And we're two Aussie guys, and you're making massive inroads into the state, and your name is becoming synonymous in the coaching world. Mate, I'm super proud of you, dude. And I can't wait to sort of unpack what you're doing and how you're doing it to continue to grow.
Appreciate you, man. And like, it goes without saying, because I've known you for such a long time, and you've seen the journey grow over at least 5 years, at least.
Yeah, mate, time flies, eh?
And I remember at the early stages, I was struggling a lot, and you helped me out so much. And so I definitely wouldn't be here without you. So I just want to give you a shout out for that. I will never forget how much you helped me, particularly in the early stages of my business, for sure.
Yeah. No, mate, and I appreciate it. And we've all gone through a journey. Like, that's one thing people don't know. Like, I've gone through a big structure, business change, and you were in a tough spot. And so I just look at who you've become now, and you've obviously helped me when I've had some tough spots too. So let's just dive in, mate. I've got some questions, and I'm happy for this to go where it needs to go. But for anyone listening, if you have any questions, you can reach out to Richmond or myself and leave a comment. Let us know what you think. Like, subscribe, all that sort of stuff. But the first thing I want to talk about is, Rich, why do you think everybody wants to be successful? I think inherently everybody wants to be successful in business. They want freedom that comes with business. People are often ashamed to say they want the income side of it, but I think that's really important. But they also want to make an impact. I truly believe that's why we're coaches and consultants. Why do you think some people make it and some people don't? Like, you give the same strategy to 10 people. Why do some people take that strategy and skyrocket? Why do some people go, it didn't work for me, and some people stay stuck? What do you think it is, man?
Yeah, it's two things. It really comes down to your mindset, because it's, like you said, same strategy to 100 different people, but some make it because they have a different mindset. But what determines a person's mindset is who they surround themselves with. That's the key. You can have the worst friends, but the best mindset, but eventually your mindset's going to drop down to the level of your peer group, period. If you're going to have the worst mindset, but you hang around the right people, eventually you're going to have a great mindset. It's just how the game works.
Do you think if you're around good people and you are in a community, because, you know, we've both got communities, why do you think if you have that soil, like that foundation, you're in the right place, why do you think some people still kind of like stay stuck and some people just, you know, skyrocket? What have you seen in your experience?
Yeah, well, firstly, like, I guess being in a great community is always going to give you a higher chance of success than not being in one, for sure. But that's a really good question, because we're in some very high level communities, and a high level community is going to be perform better than a low level community. But inside that, some people excel, like you said. And that's a really good question, because I did think about that. And it comes down to this whole comparison syndrome. And so the reason why some people excel in a high level community is because they compare for inspiration and they see what's possible, whereas others, they compare for defamation, meaning that they're like, I'll never be as good as that. I can't be as good at that. And it makes them feel worse rather than makes them feel inspired. So it's how you compare yourself to your peer group, which determines whether or not you're going to actually excel faster or not. And most people, unfortunately, don't compare the right way.
Yeah. Can you think of a time where you've done something like that, where you've obviously been in big communities? What have you done to be inspired to grow? What's been something that you've done? How do you see it personally?
Yeah. Well, first, I don't always like when see someone and think, oh my gosh, if they can do it, I can do it. Sometimes I see it, you know. So I want to say that, like, you know what I mean? Sometimes you think, man, I got nothing. Like, you know.
You have that thought, right? Like, it's not, you don't always have that, we can do it, we're the best. You do have those voices, right, that come into play. Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. But quite often, like, the culture of the community does help, but quite often I literally really, really believe inherently that if someone else can do it, then I can do it too. And like, if I have a connection to them in that community, then it just makes it easier. And so I feel like for me, I'm a sponge, I'm a great student, I'm coachable. And so for that reason, it's definitely all possible. Yeah, that's my philosophy.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. Hey, being a great student is really key. I know that there's people in communities and they don't want to ask for help, or they don't want to come to the group calls or engage in the community because they don't want to be seen as weak or don't have the answer. Especially as your brand slowly grows, you become stuck between being the master and the student, and you become none of either. You've probably seen, I've had that happen to me where I don't want to ask that because people will think, oh my God, Rana's asking that question. Like, does he not know that? And so it's easy to get stuck. But one thing I've seen you do and being in communities with you is you always ask for help and you're super generous. That's the other thing. Generosity is reciprocation. You give back, you're complimentary, you pay respect to the people that have helped you, and you're not shy to say, I need help. What do you think about this? So I think that's really important as we grow. Being that student, as you said, is critical. And I think like it sort of brings me to the next question is, you know, what would you say if someone's starting out? I've seen this thing happen where people start out and they want to get to, it's almost like there's a couple of benchmarks in business. There's 100K. I want to get to six figures. We always hear it on podcasts, or you hear it on ads, get to six figures and beyond, six figures. And the next thing is seven figures. And like, it seems like it's like 0 to 6 figures is your first high five. And then 6 figures to 7 figures is your next high five. What do you reckon is the one mistake people are making that stops them from getting to six figures? What is it to you?
Well, we learned this. Well, this is what I learned it from. I don't know where this person learned it from, but obviously from Taki, like what got you here won't get you there.
Yeah.
And so like it's so easy to model what someone else is doing when they're already successful, but that would be a big mistake. And that's, you cannot use their strategies because they're using strategies to get them to 8 figures or whatever their goal is.
Yeah.
And they're quite often, you don't see what they did to make their first 10K even. And so modeling works, but you got to model at the right stage of their life. You've got to be very careful of modeling the wrong thing or the right thing at the wrong time.
Yeah.
And that it's the modeling of the right thing at the right time, coupled with being okay with, okay, I'm just starting out. It's completely okay. So that's where I see one of the biggest mistakes when people wanting to get to a certain level, they're just doing the right thing, but at the very wrong time.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you were to start, because I know that you've been on, Russell's podcast, you've opened for Funnel Hacking Live, mate. You've been talking about this little thing that's been really interesting. I know a lot of people may know it. For those people who don't, you have a concept called the tiny challenge. Now, looking at that and having seen what you do, Rich, can you explain how that tiny challenge might help someone who's really looking to get to their first 6 figures, to get to that 100K mark, how a tiny challenge works and could work for someone?
Yeah. So this is a great lead-on question to the previous one about modeling. So when you're starting out to make your first 100K, for example, you need a vehicle to convert a cold customer or cold lead into a paying customer. And right now there's so many vehicles. You can do a webinar, a VSL, use appointment setters, run ads, events, workshops, group challenges, and they're the only things available. And that's what every guru is doing. I mean, and it's easy to copy them. And unfortunately, that's the only thing available. However, those vehicles only work because they're based on you having foundational skill sets in presenting, speaking, selling one-to-many, the tech side of things, understanding messaging, filling up a room. And that's why most people fail with those strategies, even though they work extremely well for a lot of people. But no one understands that you got to have those skills to build up to first. And how do you get those skills? You got to pay to learn it, or you got to spend time learning it, or you got to practice it. And that means you got to flop a lot of things to get the skill set to just present on camera like that, or the skill set of understanding copy, or conversion rates and marketing and filling up room and all that. So very hard to do, very, very hard to do. And so we've seen a lot of people fail from doing all those strategies. But that's the only option available. And so even running a small challenge, I'll just do a challenge with 10 people, same problem. You got to learn how to speak. You got to learn how to fill up room. You got to learn the tech. It's the exact same problem.
And also, what if you don't have a big audience, right? And only 2 people show up and you're worried. Yeah,
that's the thing. And that's the thing. What if only 2 people show up? What if only 1 person shows up?
Yeah.
Like that's the worst. You rather no one, because then no one knows. But that's how I came up with the tiny challenge, based on fear, because it was all based on, well, what if 1 person shows up?
Yeah.
And like, I ran my first challenge years ago, but that I procrastinated on such a long time because that was my biggest fear. But then the more you think about it, the more like, what if 1 person did show up? Like, really, when you think about it, why is it such a bad thing, And the more I thought about it, and then I even tested out doing one, and I thought, whoa, like, even though I was already experienced and I had those skill sets, I realized that this actually needs to be the first next step for every startup coach, because it took all the stress and all the overwhelm away. You didn't have to worry about having a big list. You didn't have to worry about speaking on camera. So it came out of the tiny challenge. So what is a tiny challenge? In case everyone's wondering. A tiny challenge is a vehicle to convert a cold customer into a paying customer that replaces every other vehicle out there, because it's like a traditional challenge, except it's just done one-on-one with you and another person. That's it. So you're not filling up a room. You're not doing any tech. You're not speaking on camera. You can do it on the phone. You don't have to worry about fancy funnels or anything like that. And you get a 100% show rate. because the times are so flexible. There's no launch date. It's like, do I start it on Monday? Well, there's no launch date because it's one-on-one. You literally, let's book in these next 5 calls. It takes all the stress and all the pressure away, massively. And that's the best way to get started. And you don't have to learn all the skill sets required for every other vehicle to work.
Yeah.
So that's why it's been a game changer. That's why Russell loved it so much, and even Pedro loved it so much. And they said, okay, you got to open up the show at Funnel Hacking Live because this is game changing. So
you know what's so funny about it is that it's ridiculously simple that it's so overlooked, right? People think I have to have a massively dialed in offer. I need to have a funnel that is filled with hot prospects or a big opportunity pipeline. Because, you talk about Russell Brunson and say Pedro, these guys have like millions of people following them. And people think, okay, so I need to get my program sorted. I need to get my course. I need to have a website. I need to make sure I have all my social media profiles up. And people procrastinate on all this passive stack, these passive assets. And what you're basically saying is, why don't you just take your experience and expertise, what you know, and put it into 5 sessions, basically, and say to someone, why don't we just work together and see how we go? And I love it because it's low risk for both people, and it's speed to experience, isn't it? So it's like you could have sales calls and go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. You go, let's just get started. And then people feel like they're already in momentum with you. And then there's a relationship that is building, which is obviously so important when it comes to making sales, is relationship. So
100%.
Yeah.
And that kind of comes back to the other thing too about, not dissing any other strategies. I do group challenges. I do webinars. We have setters. We do all those things. But we mistake to copy what we're doing when you're starting out. So that's right strategy, but not the right time for you to do it now. And on that note of what you said too, like experience, I always thought about, because you get experience super quickly and you don't need all those things and you can get started straight away. Like in the personal training industry, you know how that you can go to the gym and a personal trainer comes up and offers you a free session. Yeah. And then you may like it for half an hour, and then at the end they offer you 10 sessions, for $700. That's the business model for personal trainers. Like one free session, then they offer you 10 sessions.
Yeah.
And this is I'm going to give a comparison of why this works so well in our space and why it'll crush it in the personal training space. What if personal trainers offered a 5-day tiny challenge? 5 sessions, 5 days, half an hour each. Rather than just the one, at the end, they can develop a meal plan for that person, develop a training schedule. The person gets accountability. And the key thing is they get momentum, they get progress, because no one's getting progress after one session. And after 5 days of progress, you can elicit their goals, their fears, their frustrations, what they've tried before, where have they failed. And at the end, say, hey, look, would you like to continue this momentum and journey for the next 12 months? I've got a $3,000 program. I can hold you on track and get you fitting in that dress again. Everybody's buying that $3,000 program. Suddenly they're selling something 5 times more because of the model, because of progress. So Tiny Challenge works well because you give someone progress, which they don't get in any other vehicle, even a group challenge. So that progress is key, and that's why they convert so high.
Yeah, mate, I love that. And do you think in terms of the challenge, if people wanted to do it, and I know this is a tactical question, but just if people didn't want to do 5 sessions, or they wanted to do it as a workshop for 3 hours, or they wanted to do it, is there different modalities that they could shape it in? Or is it just, you would recommend just do the 5 sessions, like just spend time with people?
Yeah, do the 5 sessions. The sessions don't have to be long, like half an hour each. Some sessions could even be 20 minutes. Like I've done quite a few tiny challenges now, and some sessions are literally 20 minutes. Some sessions take about 45 minutes. So I would do it that way. The reason why it's better to do, and I get your question, like, should I just do a 3-hour workshop or 5 half-an-hour sessions? Because same time, there's a big difference between helping them achieve progress and feeling like they're getting progress. Because in 1 3-hour session, there is no progress. There's homework, but then there's no accountability. There's no linear, you know what I mean? That's the key. That's the difference. And you've done group challenges yourself. By day 5, you feel like you know them so well. The reciprocity is huge. So that's the biggest thing, and make sure they get progress. So don't cut it down to a 3-hour thing or one thing. 2 or 5 sessions. You're better off that way.
And Rich, like if I'm doing tiny challenges and I'm making good progress, what would you say the one mistake is that stops coaches going from 6 to 7 figures? What if I'm doing okay? I've got a set up business, making $8K a month, and things are okay, but I really want to get to, 10 times that. I want to get to $80K a month. What needs to change or shift in your experience to allow that possibility?
Yeah. So in the past, like, this is why I feel tiny challenges will help someone get from 6 to 7 faster if they've done tiny challenges to begin with, is because they've done so much one-on-one and they hear with so much depth about someone's fears, frustrations, what they actually want, what do they really want, what have they tried, what are they most afraid of failing, fear of success, what are they willing to do, what are they not willing to do. The data is huge. So you can definitely get to it. Like, we've got heaps of students getting to 100,000 through Tiny Challenge, but it means that for them to get to 100,000, they would have done a couple of 100 hours of that form of coaching.
Yeah.
And from that, like, the person that knows the ideal client the best wins. And so when you use scaling marketing strategies from 6 to 7, meaning you're going to go one-to-many now, and you may even start to venture in some ads or, group challenges or VSLs or webinars, like, those things fundamentally only work when you have your niche dialed down, your message dialed down, and a ridiculously proven offer. And so that's why they'll scale faster. So those 3 things are fundamental, and then obviously just change the model from one-to-one to one-to-many.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just about taking what's working and expanding it. So if something's working one-to-one, you now, and I love the fact, so just going back on something you said there, when you say you've got the experience now, you've got an offer that's dialed in, so you know a lot about who you're working with and what they need and why they're stuck. I think that's so critical, because people skip the offer to go straight into something like Facebook ads, because they think, Facebook ads just work, or webinars just work, or, group challenges work, or insert thing just works. But the common denominator is an offer that gets someone from interested to committed, from free to paid. And I think that's where I think a lot of people miss. They think that I'm going to go from 0 to 1 million just by running Facebook ads. And they forget that, like, what's the vehicle? They're like, what are you going to do?
Hey there, expert. So listen, our mission here at the Expert Project is to positively impact the world of other business coaches and consultants just like you. We want to help them make more impact, have more income, and have a positive influence on the world. And see, the only way we can do that is if you've heard something in today's episode that moved you, created an insight, changed your perspective, or gave you an aha moment. All I'd ask you to do is take 10 seconds, rate and review this podcast, so together we can help spread the word about this podcast and have a positive influence in someone else's world.
Do you think people need to have a selling? Like, do you ever get people who ask, what am I selling after the challenge? What am I selling? What do you recommend?
Yeah, this is why, obviously I'm biased, because I'm teaching tiny challenges, and we created the model and stuff. However, this is the best thing about tiny challenges, is because if you have no idea, let's just say you have no idea, this is the first starting point. You have no idea what to offer because it's one-on-one. Let's just say personal trainers, back to the examples, and they said, hey, have you enjoyed your progress these last 5 days? And like, oh my gosh, this is crazy progress. Cool. If I also help you achieve your 12-month goal that you mentioned on day 1 with us, and we'll do this, do this, do this. I've never, offered this before, but what do you think that would be worth? And they may say, oh, I'd probably pay 2,000. Great. If I can do that for you, would you be in? Boom. And suddenly, so you're asking feedback. Now, if you have no idea on what to offer. So you get direct feedback like that. That's the first step. The next step is if you have some idea and you think, this may work, the tactical part about offering is, this is where most people get it wrong. They try to fancy up their offer. It's so simple, it hurts. You just offer more of the same.
Yeah.
Legit, more of the same. If someone ordered a small fries at McDonald's, and McDonald's, they can offer 100 upsell menu items, but they're not going to give you every choice. The biggest uptake in upsell for a small fries is a large fries, because they like fries. Don't even try to offer a burger or a Coke or nuggets or sundae, because you don't know if they're lactose intolerant. You don't know if they like meat, but they like fries. So offer more of the same. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's so funny because we get taught that like things become complex really quick. And I think, that's the mistake I've seen when people go from 6 to 7 figures, and even people who are stuck at 7 figures. It's just they make everything more complicated when really that's one thing. I'll go back to what I've seen you do, and I've certainly adopted this in my business, is your model, if I was to look at it just from outside in, is you run a lot of events, right? Masterclasses, boot camps, and even internally, you running speaker training for your 0.1 clients. You do everything that you do is around events, right? And you don't go, okay, now I'm suddenly going to run a 20-day challenge, or you don't change what you do. Like the modality that you deliver is consistent, but inside that it changes, right? I've seen that, you might have a different theme, or you might have a different topic, but the mechanism is the same. The vehicle structure is the same. So what I'm seeing for you, and this is, I do the same, is that once you get the structure and the mechanism dialed in, you can change the theme because you know that the same structure works. The strategy is the same. It's just the topic's different. And I think what people do is they change the topic and they change the structure. And all of a sudden they're making something that was simple and working unscalable and complex just because they think I've got to do more to get more. Right?
Couldn't agree more. Could not agree more. And it's not easy doing the same thing. Like, it's boring if you want, really. Yeah, and entrepreneurs, they just want to create, and
that's it. Yeah. Man, how do you, going back to that comment, it is, when you say it's boring, now I know you don't mean it like that, because I know that it's every event is different because the people in it are different, the themes are different. How do you know what to say no to, Rich? You've been tempted to change what you do. You've probably tried things. What keeps you consistent? What's your filter for ideas and new things that you run through?
Yeah. Well, making mistakes and falling victim to shiny object syndrome to only realize I shouldn't have done that. Yeah. And then you're like, okay, I'm not going to do that ever again. That hurt too much. That's the truth. I don't think I was born focused on one and disciplined like that. Man, seriously, just jumping from one to the other, and like, okay, should have just mastered this one, and that's it. Yeah, I got the lesson early, and I got the lesson big.
Yeah, that's it, mate. Look, we've gone through and answered a lot of questions there, and I think just to recap for everybody, understanding what to do. I love that tiny challenge concept, and definitely, Rich, I know that you offer masterclasses, and you've got a book coming out potentially soon as well. So everyone, just keep an eye out for that. I'm a massive believer in like do less better, keep it simple, because it's so much easier to build a skill set around one thing and get epic at one thing than trying to do everything average. And you're a perfect example of someone who's just dialed in their model. You've got a great structure, you practice what you preach, and the results speak for itself, mate. So Rich, mate, thanks for joining us today and sharing your knowledge. And for anyone else who's looking to reach out or want to learn more about you, Rich, what's the best place to do that?
Yeah, and unfortunately, I don't have a fancy website or anything like that, which is funny because it just proves that you don't need the, like you were talking about, You can go to tinychallenge.com. That's probably where you might get some info from me. Even if you go to richmonddin.com, it'll lead you to tinychallenge.com. Anyway, everything's Tiny Challenge now.
Yeah. I love it.
That's where you might see the book when it comes out. So tinychallenge.com.
Perfect.
And all right. Awesome,
Cheers,
Rana.
Rich. Thanks for your time, brother. Appreciate
it. Thanks for having me on. See ya.
Bye.